You're scrolling on Facebook and a post from the TTPS page pops up in your feed. Missing person. A young lady, 19 years old, last seen wearing a pair of jeans, a black top, and a pair of sandals. You just look at it, dismiss it, and say, she's not missing. She's probably by her man. If it were you, would you like the benefit of the doubt? Let's talk about it. Welcome to this episode of the Socially Safe Podcast, the TTPS podcast, where we share real stories, teach real lessons, and create real impact. On set today, we have a special guest, as we're also joined by our co-host as usual, Sergeant Marvin Walker, and Mr. Smith is back with us, the original Dick Tracy from South, to give us more insights around this topic that we're going to talk about today, which is around missing persons and some of the things that actually go on behind the scenes. So welcome back to set, guys. So glad to have you back.
Yes, thank you very much, Jamila, and thanks for having me. Sergeant Walker.
Yes, thank you. And again, sir, thank you for your insight.
Yes.
You're welcome.
So as we established in the last episode, I'm about to remind people who may not have caught the last episode, just give us a little bit of insight into your years of experience, because you are in fact the Assistant Commissioner of Police of the Criminal Division, right?
Yes.
The
yes,
Criminal Division. So you have responsibility for a lot of different investigative arms of the service,
Yes.
including the Anti-Kidnapping Unit, which is in focus today. So just give us a little bit of insight about your history.
Okay, right. Well, I have been a police officer for the past 38 years.
Yes.
I've been a detective for 24 years out of that 38 years.
Mm-hmm.
And, even after having left the CID itself, I worked at the Criminal Investigations Department, Port of Spain, in 2022, and I'm now the head of the Criminal Investigations Department and the CRO, Criminal Records Office. My investigative period goes way back, and I've been involved in all type of investigations, from homicide, which is the highest crime in the land, to
Right.
assault by beating, which is one of the minor offenses that we have, and all type of investigations, we must take them seriously, and we cannot trivialize any of them, and we are supposed to treat every victim the same in every type of investigation, because remember, they are all victims.
Yes.
Yes.
But we do have a general sense of dismissal. At least this is what I have found. So when we are looking at the TTPS Facebook feed or the Instagram feed, we see a lot of comments, people just giving the dismissive comments. But I'm sure you could share with us any stories, any cases that you guys have come across where the missing person was almost like an open door into a whole other life. So you have anything you could pull out of that box of stories of yours and share with us?
And just to go back to your first question, that some people tend to dismiss these reports when they see them more so with these young ladies.
Yeah.
You see, sometimes they crying wolf theory must come out there, where persons tend to, go missing or just pack up and go to their boyfriend's home and all these things at times, and then we find them sometime after they return home. But then we must treat every single report as serious as if it's a real missing person. Some people believe that people lie and people just go to the boyfriend and all these things. It's not about that. We must verify every single report, because we cannot take anything for granted at any point in time, because we never know. We can never tell when something actually happened to this person. We also have the elderly who have Alzheimer's, who tend to walk away from home. We have a lot of reports like that.
Yes.
And, we must take that seriously. So, like the young ladies who tend to leave home, we want the public not just to dismiss that. We want the public not just to dismiss where an elderly walk away from home or they are missing. We want them to pay attention outside there to see if they can assist us in these investigations, because we take them quite seriously.
Yes. But what do you find is the attitude if the missing person happens to be a young man? What do you find is the difference in attitude in terms of the public? What have you observed?
With the young men, people tend to say, well, he probably involved in crime or something like that, and leave them shot dead and all these kind of things. So that is the kind of dismissive attitude people have. But the thing about it is, today might be somebody else, and and tomorrow might be a relative of yours or a friend of yours. So, we must be mindful of that, and we cannot stereotype persons,
Yes.
because we cannot go into that at all. We cannot stereotype persons. We must treat everybody with respect and treat every single report, as a serious report.
Yes.
We cannot trivialize them at all.
So I want to bring in Sergeant Walker at this point, and I want to ask you if any cases came across the Cyber and Social Media Unit where it may have been a discussion with somebody online, a victim may have started a relationship. And when I say relationship, it doesn't have to be romantic. Just interacting with somebody online, and somehow they took the engagement offline and they went missing. Do you see anything like that? Could you tell us about any cases like that?
And I love the question. I'll start with a personal story growing up, in formative years. I've had disagreements with my parents as well, and left home for some time. And there was concern there. So it often, a lot of people are dismissive at times, but when it hits home and it reaches in your yard, you would want that assistance, And sometime quite recently there, and there's a local case where she was elderly, but she had left the country.
Oh.
And this going into a whole cybercrime thing there, romance scam and so forth, but she was actually duped and tricked in going on, and she had reached, I think it was it Brazil or something like that, where she wanted to meet her Dubai prince.
So somebody from Trinidad, an elderly woman, met somebody online, booked a ticket, flew abroad, and her family did not know.
With many steps, they did not know that was the direction where she went. They only know they last saw her on a particular date and time, and they made a report to the police that this is unusual, and she's not here. So it's real out there. Some persons are tricked, and they're missing.
She went to Brazil to look for a Dubai prince. I guess she didn't see her.
But she was in transition, and that's it. So even with that situation, we often dismiss and say, well, how could she get catch with that? I could never get catch with that. But these perpetrators online, they use a lot of psychology and to get behind the mind. And I've also assisted with a young person case here as well. And with the information coming to us, and we analyze all the information in the background to see what your communication was like just before you went missing, and before have a conversation with the parents just to get understanding. As I mentioned, even with myself, I'm a human being. So I know sometimes that young people have disagreements with their parents and so forth. But we take all the information together to try to build a profile and understand why are they doing this. Who is the first person they may go to in runaway? Because you're not just going to run away and go on the streets. They go into some place. So we start the investigation there, where we assist the Anti-Kidnapping Unit and the various police districts in those reports.
All right, so Mr. Smith, off the top of your head, you don't have to give me an exact figure, right? But from the missing persons report that we see posted online, roughly, like, what percentage of those people return? What percentage are actually gone? Whether their body turns up somewhere or they're missing and we just don't ever find them. And what percentage are we looking at in terms of recovery of those persons?
Okay. So I will give an average. So we look at an average of about 70% return home that we find or return home, right? Then we look at about 20% or thereabouts might be found dead accordingly, and then we have about 10% might be 10 to 15 might be outstanding, right? So no information, anything like that. So that's an average, a rough average of how it is. What we take all these reports seriously, as I said before, and that's the reason we have a sergeant of police that leads the investigations in every single division that we have a missing person report. We have a sergeant of police leading the investigation. And we have oversight by the Anti-Kidnapping Unit as well as the Homicide Bureau of Investigations, because as we see, it could turn out to be a kidnapping as well as it could turn out to be a homicide, right? So we have them already on board with the investigator working alongside them. So we have two persons overseeing these investigations along with the sergeant of police, who is a senior enough officer who can handle this type of investigations. Now, mind you, when the reports are made at the station level, if a sergeant of police is not there to be assigned the investigation. At the same time, we have any officer who is on duty would make the preliminary checks.
Right.
And then we have officers going to the home of the missing person and all these different things. And I remember there was one occasion that there was a missing person in a central division where I worked there. And going to the scene, you must be able to make some observations as to what is taking place. So you look at the person's room to see if you had any disruption, any ransacking, and all these things.
Yes.
Then you look for personal effects to see if the person's. So what persons love the most to move with now? The phone.
The phone,
So
yeah.
once the phone are wrong, you know, well, they're probably somewhere close by. Then you look for their personal effects like their wallet and things
Yeah.
like that, right? And then if the car is there, if they own a vehicle. And then from that, you can make some assessment as to, but this person might still be around. Or if he was taken, right, he was there, he would then be elsewhere. So you make some initial checks with the inner perimeter, then you extend your perimeter, and you keep going outwards. And then you start to check further out, you know, when you think. And I remember in one particular instance, that person was found just over the road, you know,
Really?
from where they were living, just down an embankment. You know, so when they
Alive?
no, but he was dead.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Wow.
So we had to continue investigation, but it turned out that it wasn't any homicide. It was something apparently he fell sick, and he went across the road and he fell across that embankment there. But you know, there are several reports that, you know, we have to investigate, and there are reports where persons make up so much erroneous stories.
Yes, because I was just about to
Yeah.
ask you, because I did see something in the news recently, or at least some time ago, where a young lady was reported as missing, and then she came online and said, I'm not missing, I
Yeah.
just needed to get a break
Yes.
Yeah.
from
Yes.
home. So how many people do you find, or do you often find that you get reports where they, I don't want to say they wastefully employ police time, but they use the resources, TTPS resources, almost like a way to fish out people that they're looking for, and they put things out there? Do you find that people kind of manipulate system like that?
Sometimes we have that, but you know what we did to sensitize the members of the public when we recognized that we were having a lot of missing persons. If this person did something that's out of character, for instance, they are supposed to they normally come home 5 o'clock in the afternoon, or 5:30, and you see 7, 8 o'clock they did not come home. Rather than wait until it's too late, we tend to ask persons to make a report because it's out of character. So then you will have the person saying, like what you just said there, well, I just went to cool off my head when they came back home. But sometimes it could be that somebody took them, right? They went missing. Somebody might fall ill. Somebody might be in a hospital because they might have fallen on the, somewhere en route to home. So, you know, we have different reasons why persons are, missing or go missing.
Yes.
So, you know, we tend to sensitize the public. Yes, make the report. And if it turns out to be nothing serious, then so be it.
Right.
But if it was something serious, then we want to be on top of it from the onset.
Right. So, of course, you know, we had to take it to the public. So in this episode's edition of Streetwise, we were trying to understand people's attitude towards missing persons, and this is what they had to say.
Most of the times when I see missing persons report, especially if it's a young lady, I mean, we are Trinidadians, I being honest with you, the first thing I would say, she go by she boyfriend. The first thing I would say, you probably meet somebody online who you don't even know, because look at what happened in Trinidad and Tobago, persons just meeting persons online, going, they're getting robbed, it's all kind of things happening through the social media and through Facebook and these different apps that they have available. So it's the first thing I would think.
Missing persons reports concerning women, I think those are particularly tragic. Of course, anybody missing is a tragic scenario, but women in particular, they tend to get kind of written off, say that they're going to check a man, a boyfriend or something, And I don't think that should ever be the first thought that people should have. We never know what is the scenario, and we should always be respectful of the person the girl who's missing, her family. And I really feel bad, I like to give my thoughts and prayers, but I feel bad that sometimes I see these reports and I don't do anything about it, I'll feel bad, but I don't keep the person's face in mind so that when I'm going out on the streets, I can see if I see them by chance, in the likelihood it happens. But I feel there's more us as the public could do rather than, you know, offer the thoughts and prayers or worse, criticize.
In different cases, it could be a lot of reasons why, but especially when I hear it's a woman that is missing, the first thing comes to mind is probably she going by a boyfriend, or you know, she had an argument with her ex, or that kind of situation. But I think now where they are more sick and and those kind of entitled kind of stalkers and stuff, is harder to say that she went by a boyfriend, or she went by somebody. It could be she went by somebody online as well, and you just never know. So there where you have a split in between your mind, like, is it really somebody she know or somebody she don't know?
I had an experience like that with my sister. She went looking for a job, and people actually waiting to grab her and put her in a van. Yeah, so I believe like females need to be a little more careful, because people watch their size, you know, like a girl, she's small and she's feminine. They believe she's an easy target.
When I see missing person in Trinidad, my first concern will be fear, but as a woman, I will be more fearful because we are all women, and you will hope it's nothing serious, but then there has been issues where things happen to females all over, so you just be cautious, you just read along to make sure, prepare yourself, this could be you anytime, so just cautious. If the person happens to be a man, I think we still need to be more cautious, because it kind of by standard saying female alone could be in danger, so I think we should assert the same amount of caution for female and male, but typically men tend to be more domestic or illegal situations where they end up missing, and they are easier, I wouldn't want to say easier to solve, but it's easier to deal with in a sense.
So that was our Streetwise segment. So, gentlemen, we've seen some of the prevailing attitudes that people have towards missing persons, right? We've seen some of them. And, you know, even in one case, it was a real dangerous situation. That young man talked about his sister being snapped up. I mean, I don't know if you have seen more cases like that, where people need to be more careful. Like, what would you advise people in situations like that? Because that person actually went looking for a job.
Yes. You see, and you know, in that instance, it was quite dangerous, as you rightfully said. And, you know, while we might try to be careful in every instance, but it's difficult to determine when somebody is speaking the truth or not. The type of language and the manner in which they make you believe they are professionals at what they do. Mm-hmm. So they make you actually believe that they have a job offer for you. Mm-hmm. And when you go there, I know of some instances where persons were even drugged. They were given offered something to drink, and they were even drugged when they went job hunting. Mm-hmm. So women must be careful in that regard, because, you know, it could happen to anybody. And some people believe that could never happen to me. I'm smarter than that. I'm smarter. Yeah. But then when you're looking for a job, you're in a desperate position where you need to feed your family or even support yourself. Yeah. You tend to do things that you know, you might let your guard down for that instance, and that might be just the opportunity that they're waiting for. Yes. So fortunately, for that contributor there, the person who spoke, you know, I'm happy that his sister wasn't taken. Yeah. All right, and you know, but most of them said the same thing. You know, that they would firstly think about the woman. They went to meet some boyfriend or these things. That is where the stereotyping comes in. Mm-hmm. But we need to take it seriously and keep our eyes open for these persons who might go missing. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on?
Well, they spoke about the women. Yeah. Currently, we have several reports where persons utilize various database dating applications.
Yes.
Including the males.
Yes.
Right. Yes. Who get lured into the aspect, and then they are either robbed.
Yes.
There sometimes their movement is restricted for some time, you know, and they are relieved of all their items. Yes. So the persons have to be careful in this digital age. And with the ubiquitous nature of technology and so forth, the criminals are just looking to exploit wherever opportunity. Yeah. So we continually speak about making yourself that hard target.
You know, as you mentioned, the use of dating apps, because of course we have a whole episode that we want to talk about that on. But I want to just throw my mind back and throw your minds back to the case of this young man. Orion, I think he was on Blanche Chef. He met somebody in an app. And he was gone, you know. And one of the things I well, I want to emphasize, and you guys could tell me what your thoughts are. It's like when you are making arrangements to go meet people you've never met before,
Yes.
I think you have to take extra precaution in the sense of being accountable, letting people know you're going out. Because, I mean, you may just leave home to go meet somebody, thinking
Yes.
that, you don't want anybody to, interfere with your,
Yeah,
your plans
yes,
to go
yeah,
meet this
yeah,
person because
yeah.
somebody might say, you sure you want to meet that person? So tell us a little bit about people taking that kind of chance and what are some of the precautions they can put in place.
So I think that some people like to be private. They don't want anybody to know their business and all these things, but it's to their detriment in these instances. So for instance, you meet somebody online and I decide to go out with them. Nobody knows them, you haven't never met them. And I will give you a story about that as well, because we had one instance where we charged a particular person who met men online and was speaking with them. And then when they came to meet that person, and that person pretended to be a woman. And it was actually a man who was pretending to be a woman. And then he decided to meet with the persons who he met online. And when those persons came forward, that person came up and said he was a police officer. And that the person that they were speaking to was a 16-year-old girl. And that the family wanted money to settle the matter.
Oh, wow.
So he took money from these persons who were actually talking to him online, but he pretended to be a 16-year-old.
Wow.
So remember, they're just typing. So when you send in this information, they would believe it. You could pretend to be whoever you want to be. The handsome hunk who the Dubai dream and all these things that they spoke about.
Yes.
All that could happen online, and they would take your money, or even if you go to meet them, they could take you and call for ransom. So we then have a live kidnapping to deal with.
Yeah.
So persons must be careful what they're doing. More so when you meet people online, you must let your relatives know. You must be able to confide in somebody. Listen, I'm going to meet this particular person here or there. And the point about what happens when you actually go is they change the location. So if you say we're going to meet them KFC in Port of Spain, next thing you hear, they meet them St. James because I can't make it because I get a problem with transportation. So you're so anxious to meet this love of your life or this dreamboat or this handsome hunk, and you decide to go to St. James. When you go to St. James, meet me on this corner up in St. James here, and the area keep changing. And that happens with vehicles as well. When you go to purchase vehicles or anything, they keep changing the locations. And there is when they get tied up, they may take you, they may rob you, or worse could happen.
Yes.
Right?
And we
So
talked
you must be careful.
about the use of those high pressure, almost like sales tactics that people put pressure on you to meet me here, meet me there, meet me there.
Yeah.
And we definitely noted that as a method that people use to kind of lure you into
That's
situations
correct.
that you
That's
wouldn't normally be a
Yes.
part of.
Yes.
Right? So, I mean, we really do have to be careful, but I also think it's really important to emphasize that, every missing person is a person to take note of and somebody to be looked for.
Yes.
You shouldn't just dismiss people. Even the ones who return home,
Yes.
there must be a reason why they have gone,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So as a society, we shouldn't be so callous, and we should be more, compassionate.
Yes.
Obviously, every situation would be dealt with differently, but I do think it's important to emphasize that. And regardless of whether if it's a young lady and they want to dismiss her as going by a man, or even if it's a young man and they say, well, he's in crime, who cares, and you dismiss it. Be on the lookout, be on the lookout for people as you move about.
And we don't take it as a wasteful employment of the police unless we do our investigations and recognize that you actually lied. But most times the person who makes the report of missing person is a concerned relative or a friend or somebody who wants to make that report because the person is acting out of character.
Yes.
And they need to find out what is taking place with that person. Yeah. So there's no reason for us to charge that person for making a false report unless they did something to that person and come to make a report after to cover their tracks.
Yes.
And through our investigations, we will recognize that and we will deal with it accordingly. But we take all missing persons report quite seriously.
Yeah, and that comes with the ill intention, but with the use of technology, safety is a thing that you could utilize the technology to ensure. If you have someone that you're confident, you could share your location with that person. As mentioned, you could probably just indicate, well, I'm going to this particular location to meet this person. You take a picture of the car that you're going in to say, there's the car going in,
Yes.
Or you're traveling home late at night.
Yes.
Yeah.
You might feel a little uneasy take a picture, I think send it to someone one time. Don't
One
take
time.
a picture and hold it in your phone.
Yes.
Yeah,
Because then
yeah.
they may take your phone and you no longer have the evidence. Send it to someone who you trust, who could easily reach the police and get help to you
Yes.
if needed.
That's definitely something I've done in the past.
Yes.
Yes. All right, guys. So, we're going to bring this one to a close, place it under arrest. So, what are some final thoughts? What do you want to advise people on when it comes to missing persons in terms of how they perceive the reports and also how they should protect themselves so they don't potentially become a victim of any kind of kidnapping or going missing?
Yes. So I just want to say that, again, I want to reiterate that we take every single report of missing person quite seriously. I don't want anybody to believe that the police will trivialize their report. If they believe that their friend or relative is acting out of character, please make a report and we will, through our investigations, we will decide what actually took place. Yes, we know persons will go for a little break and all these things, but the fact is, make the report, and then it will be, we can laugh at it after that they went for a break, but we wouldn't like something to happen to them or something has happened to them and they didn't respond. Check your phones. If you know your loved one is outside, please call them in between to find out what has taken place. And to the persons who are on the different apps, the Grindr and the Tinder and all these things, please be careful who you meet with. Make sure that you inform somebody that you're going to meet these persons. And as my colleague here said, send a little location. If they change the location, you continue sending the locations. And then your friend might tell you, hey, don't go further. You have to be smart, you have to use the common sense to make yourself a hard target. Don't go different places. If they change the location 2 or 3 times, that should be a red flag to tell you, hey, this is not good. Let me stop this and go back to my home or go back to my workplace. We must be sensible as to what we are doing outside here. And loneliness might be one of the issues that cause a lot of this. So you're looking for some partner, some relationship. And these persons are very skilled in what they're doing, so they will tend to entice you with the best things that you want to hear. They will tell you that just to get you where they want you.
Yes, and utilize the technology to stay safe.
Yeah.
Get in contact with someone that you trust and so forth. And the TTPS has a one-door policy, right?
Yes.
You can make any time, any day, at any place. You could come to us, make a report. Your reports will be dealt with. At times, you may feel that it's not being dealt with. Let's step it up a little higher. Ask to speak to probably a senior officer, and assistance would be given to you. As we continue to provide that safety in the physical space and the cyberspace.
All right, guys. So don't you miss any episodes of this podcast. So go right now to the TTPS YouTube channel and subscribe. And if you want to listen on the go, you could download this podcast via Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Trinidad and Tobago, thanks again for listening. And remember, don't just stay safe, stay socially safe.